Thank you for your purchase of Neary Technologies 555 SRI Spin Relief Grinder. This presentation will assist you in learning how to operate this machine. There are safety features that have been designed into the 555 SRI that make the task of spin and relief grinding very safe and efficient. All operations and running of the machine must be done with the door closed and never bypass the built-in safety features. To begin, let's look at the accessories you have received with the machine and take a look at the layout of the control panel. There is a digital gauge and accessory PC that is used to properly align the reel and check for taper. Multi-position brackets, which are used for units with no front roller, and standard V-roller brackets that are used for cutting units with a front roller. Lastly, there is a spin drive mechanism and coupler used to spin and rotate the reel. Let's take a look at the control panel. There is the green main power button to turn the machine on, a red emergency stop switch, a switch to turn the grinding wheel on and off, a grinding head traverse switch, and a traverse speed potentiometer so you can control how fast you want to traverse, a directional toggle switch for the spin drive, a switch that turns the spin drive on and off, a variable spin speed pot to control spin speeds, and a variable torque pot that is used to control the amount of torque needed to index the blade when relief grinding, and lastly, a spin relief switch to choose your grinding mode.
As an add-on option, your company may have ordered the workstation. It will allow you to easily transfer the reel into and out of the machine and can also be used as a workbench in the maintenance shop.
The relief process is exactly that, a process. The diameter of the reel and the number of reel blades will not matter, so changing from the spin grind to the relief grind is simply a matter of knowing the procedural steps. Let's take a look at the relief mechanism itself. Notice how this whole fixed finger assembly swivels and rotates up and over the relief stone. After placing the front roller into the V-blocks, we will initially determine the relief angle. Loosen the assembly, allowing it to drop behind the stone. Position the relief stone and assembly on the left side of the reel and rotate the left in-feed hand wheel up until the desired angle is achieved. You can pull the blade into the stone and rotate the shaft to scratch the surface to determine this angle. If you want more relief angle, continue to upfeed the hand wheel and do another scratch pattern. Once you have determined the desired angle, rotate the finger assembly up to trap the blade between the stone and the fixed finger and lock the handle. Let's take a look at the way the relief mechanism works. You trap the blade between the stone and the fixed finger, and there is a spring-loaded index pin that travels left behind the reel blade. When the index pin springs forward off the left side of the reel and the stone comes off the blade, the traverse switch will send the relief stone and assembly to the right. The index pin is now traveling in front of the reel blade, and when the relief assembly gets to the right-hand side of the reel, the blade falls off the fixed finger and the blade above indexes down. If you look at the area at the left rear side of the assembly, there is a locking knob and an adjusting knob for the index pin. This adjusting knob for the index pin works like an eccentric in relation to the back of the reel blade, and it has two purposes. First, it serves as the stop for the index of the reel blade, and second, it serves as the guide to make the blade travel between the stone and the fixed finger. As long as you have approximately 1/16 to 1/32 of an inch free play behind the reel blade, the blade will always travel between the stone and the fixed finger. This has proven to be a very simple design and switchover process. Once you know the steps, it will take less than a minute and a half to make the change. There is one more feature on the relief assembly. It has a lock handle that allows for the operator to adjust the guide finger with the wear of the stone. You always want to maintain around 1/8 of an inch gap between the stone and the fixed finger. Now that you know how to determine your relief angle and you have an idea of how the relief system works, let's look at how to position the reel into the machine. In viewing the reel from the right side of the machine, place the center shaft of the reel in the 1 o'clock position relative to the live shaft of the grinding wheel. This will establish the initial position for where the roller goes in the horizontal bracket. Before you make a note of your front roller bracket position, check the clearances and relief angle. The clearance that you're looking for is relative to the grinding stone. Check the clearance with the front roller and check for clearance with the blade above the one you're relieving. Once you determine the correct position, make a note of the bracket positions for each reel on the reel setup guide found in the owner's manual. Now you can clamp the reel in with the 2 front clamps while the single rear roller clamp is left loose. Then connect the spin drive coupler. Note that the spin drive is on an adjustable tooth bar system that has numerical gauges to note the position. Now you are ready to properly align the reel and measure the taper that has developed through use. Make sure the in and out lock handles are loose on the right and the left hand side of the adjustable front roller brackets. This is the front alignment bracket for the gauge, and it's positioned on the tooling bar in the front of the machine. Attach the gauge to the bracket. Always start alignment on the left side of the machine. Push the digital gauge to the center shaft of the reel and set the gauge to 0. Pull the gauge out and bring the alignment assembly to the right-hand side, and push the gauge to the center of the reel. Looking at the gauge reading, adjust the front roller V-block until the gauge reads 0. Pull the gauge out and move the alignment assembly back to the left. Push the gauge to the center of the reel and adjust the left front roller V-block to 0 and lock it into position. To ensure the reel is square, pull out the gauge and take it back to the right side of the reel. Conduct another reading and adjust as needed to set it to 0. To ensure the reel is parallel to the tooling bar and both ends of the reel read 0, repeat the gauging process until it is plus or minus 2 thousandths. After alignment, take the small roll pin at the tip of the digital gauge to the cutting edge of a reel blade and set it to 0. Pull out and move the gauge to the opposite end of the reel and measure the same reel blade at the cutting edge. This will determine your amount of taper, which in this case is 8 thousandths of an inch. Refer to the manual and determine the additional infeed needed on the large end of the reel in order to remove the taper. In this case, the gauge reads 8 thousandths and the measuring distance was 16 inches. On the reel shaft, we'll adjust the hand wheel on the larger side of the reel 35 thousandths more in order to remove the taper. Make a mental note or write the number down. You are now ready to touch the reel off and align the spin grinding wheel with the reel. There are traverse drive engagement levers that allow you to move the grinding stone assemblies by hand. Manually move the relief stone to the far left side of the machine and leave the handle unengaged. Manually move the spin stone to the left side of the reel and upfeed the stone with the left hand wheel until the stone is close to the reel blade. Take the stone to the right hand side and bring the stone up to barely make contact. When taking the stone back to the left side of the reel, back down on the left hand wheel if you hit the reel. Repeat the process of touching off until the stone is barely touching both sides of the reel equally. Back off the stone slightly and evenly to freely move the grinding head to set the proximity switches. Move the spin grinding wheel to clear the reel blades and place the proximity switch bracket on the rails to secure the prox in the proper position to stop the travel of the grinding wheel. Do this for both sides. Now you are ready to engage the handle for the spin stone on the belt drive. Close the door. Make sure the spin direction toggle switch is in the clockwise position and the spin relief mode switch is in the spin mode position. Turn on the grinding wheel. Turn on the traverse switch and rotate the travel pot to begin the grinding process. Infeed both hand wheels equally and make sure the spark pattern is grinding the same on both ends of the reel, making any adjustment on the infeed hand wheels as necessary. Set the digital gauge indicators of the infeed hand wheels on each side of the machine to 0. Find a spin speed that is appropriate for the diameter of the reel and the blade count, as you'll find an optimum speed to aggressively grind yet get a smooth grind. Keep in mind the amount of extra infeed that is needed on the large end of the reel to compensate for removal of taper. Depending on the amount of taper and how dull the reel was, you can either infeed the one side the full amount, as this will sharpen the smaller end of the reel by the time you are done with the overcompensated infeed, or infeed on the large side for a period, then downfeed on the small side, with the ultimate objective of having both sides of the reel sharp and the compensation for the removal of taper accounted for. After the reel is ground to a sharp edge, always stop travel at the right prox with the traverse pot and turn off the grinding wheel and the spin drive. Remove the right prox, disengage the traverse engagement lever for the spin stone, and manually move the spin stone to the far right side of the machine, keeping the handle for traverse disengaged. Reset the digital gauges for the infeed hand wheels to 0. Remove the left prox and bring the relief stone to the left side of the reel, where the blade is fully on the fixed finger of the relief assembly. Rotate and upfeed the hand wheels equally until the blade is trapped between the stone and the fixed finger. Push the spring-loaded index pin back and move the stone slightly further to the right, where the index pin is behind the reel blade. With the reel blade trapped and snug between the stone and the fixed finger, unlock the lock knob for the index pin adjustment, and adjust the free play of the dowel pin to 1/16 to 1/32 of an inch behind the reel blade. Relock the lock knob. Downfeed equally on both sides to slightly back off of the reel. Manually move the stone and relief assembly to the left, where the stone clears the reel blade, and place the prox on the rails to stop travel here. Manually move the relief stone assembly to the right, and allow the reel blade to come off both the stone and the fixed finger, but stop where the spring-loaded index pin will catch the reel blade. Re-engage the traverse handle for the relief stone. Place the prox switch on the rails to stop travel here. Now you can close the door and change from spin mode to relief mode. Put the spin drive direction toggle switch down in the counterclockwise direction and rotate the relief torque pot all the way down to 0. Turn on the spin drive. Slowly rotate the relief torque pot until the blade indexes hard enough to push the dowel all the way back. Turn on the grinding wheel, turn the travel pot up, and once on the reel, infeed the grinding stone equally until you are aggressively grinding. After a complete revolution of all reel blades, continue to infeed the grinding wheel up until you are satisfied with the amount of back blade removal. You should be grinding until approximately 85% of the back of the blade is removed and only 15% of land area exists. When you are finished, stop travel at the right-hand prox and turn off the spin drive and grinding wheel. Open the door and remove the reel. This concludes the training presentation on Neary Technologies 555 SRI Spin Relief Grinder. Please contact your local distributor with any questions or visit our website at www.nearytech.com.